I have something called atrial fibrillation, which is where your heart starts beating strange. So they're going to put me in the hospital next week and give me this medicine that's supposed to fix it. And then hopefully I'll be back to normal. Okay, so no worries. It's nothing like really serious. Well, for a message today, I wrote it down. I'm always open to finding out what the second generation is interested in, since they represent the future. And so when I found out I was going to give the Sunday sermon, I asked one of them what type of sermon they would like to hear. And they said, actually, I don't like sermons. I would rather hear a testimony. And I said, okay. This person said, I like to hear testimonies. So I decided instead of giving a sermon, I'll just tell you a story. Is that okay? I'll just tell you a story. So, a little bit about me. I was raised up in the Roman Catholic Church. And I was very serious about it when I was a little boy. I became something called an altar boy, if you know what that is. And I sang in the choir. And my whole life revolved around the church. And I went to a church school. So I had religion classes every day in my school for 9 years. And I seriously considered becoming a priest, a Catholic priest. But then a problem developed. When I got to be about 14 years old and my intellect started to develop, I started having second thoughts about the Catholic Church. I started to struggle because I was taught that if you were a Roman Catholic, you were going to go to heaven, and everybody else was going to burn in hell. And I said, I don't know, that doesn't make sense to me. And finally, at the age of 16, I just stopped going to church. I left the Catholic Church because my soul was hungry for something more that my church was not able to provide. And then I started to notice how much suffering there was in the world. And like at that time, we were in the middle of the war in Vietnam. So a lot of young men were dying in this war. And the more I watched the news and the more I learned about the world, the sadder I got. It bothered me a lot. And I came to the conclusion that either there is no God, or he's such a mean guy, I don't want anything to do with him. And so that was the end of my life of faith. But then when I was 20, I met the Unification Church. And I was impressed by the evidence in the divine principle that it taught for the existence of God. Oh, by the way, it's getting really hot in here.
Might be your meds kicking in.
It's a medication. So anyway, I was very impressed by the divine principle because it gave such compelling evidence for the existence of God that I gave it a second chance. I said, well, maybe there is a God after all. And the other thing that excited me about the church is that I was taught that anybody could make a direct personal relationship with God. Because as a Catholic, I wasn't taught that. It was like if God wanted to say something, he would tell the Pope, but not me. So I was very excited. Wow, I could actually talk to God and have a relationship with God. You didn't have to be a priest or a minister to accomplish that. And that made me happy. So I stayed in the church for 5 years, spending most of that time fundraising. And after 5 years, I was burned out. I was exhausted, physically and spiritually. So I asked for permission to take a break, and I got permission. I was offered an opportunity to go to a workshop site called Camp New Hope. Has anybody ever been there? It was in upstate New York near Barrytown. And so when I arrived, it was a really kind of a magical, mysterious thing happened. Because I hadn't even gotten my stuff out of the van, and this sister approached me. And I didn't know, I'd never seen her before, never met her before. But somehow she knew she should talk to me. And we sat down and she asked me what was going on with me. And so I told her that I was exhausted, but I didn't think it was just physical. I told her that I thought there was something wrong in my relationship with God. So she gave me some really great advice. She advised me to go take a walk in the woods. All right? And she said, go walk in the woods. You know, go for a long way. Go walk for as long as you need to go. Know that you're alone. Go into the woods to a place where you know that you have privacy. You understand? And so it's just you and God. So that was the first thing she said. Then, when you get there, just open your heart and talk to God. She said, lay out all of your cards on the table. I want you to tell him exactly how you feel, and tell him everything you feel, even the bad stuff. In fact, especially the bad stuff. So, I was a little nervous to do that, because I was actually kind of afraid of God. But I trusted this sister for some reason. Her name, by the way, is Annie Redmond, if anybody knows her. And I trusted her, so I said, okay, I'm going to do this. So I walked out into the woods, and I searched. I got quiet, and I had a journal with me and a pen, so I could write down any ideas I got, right? And I searched my heart to try to find out what was really bugging me. And I found out that what was bugging me is that I was angry at God. Wow. The funny thing is, I was angry at God, but I didn't even know I was angry at God, because I couldn't admit that to myself. See what I'm saying? But I was angry at God. And the reason I was angry at God is because I was doing all this fundraising, and I was doing all this stuff because the way I understood it from a little boy is because I was such a bad sinner. You know, we were such bad sinners that Jesus had to die on the cross for us. We're so evil and we're so bad, and that's why the world is such a mess. That's what I was taught. So I searched my heart, and that didn't feel right. So I finally got really honest with God, and I told God how I felt. And this is what I said. God, the way I see it, it's all your fault. You are the one that's responsible for all the suffering of mankind. It's your fault. Well, what do you think happened? I was really nervous. I was thinking that a lightning bolt might come out of the sky and just kill me right on the spot. But that is not what happened. What happened was the total opposite. The first thing that happened is I could feel, and I don't even know how to explain this, but the atmosphere in the woods changed. Okay? The presence of God came into the woods and just filled it. And I could feel it. And the atmosphere was love. And it surrounded me, and I started to choke up. But then I heard a voice in my head. And the voice said, Ron, you're absolutely right. And I accept it. I accept total responsibility for all of this. And I was shocked, because that was not at all what I was expecting. That was not the God that I was taught about in Catholic school. This was a God that was very loving and very humble and sincere. So that's the first thing he said. And then, for some reason, I was able to have a conversation with him, and I wrote the whole thing down. So I said, well, you are cruel, you're uncaring, you're domineering. And I said that because I felt like, well, if you take responsibility for all of this mess, why don't you do something about it? Why do you allow it to continue? And God said, no, I am none of those things. Those who suffer bring it upon themselves. It's the only hope for them to change. And I tell you, I couldn't accept that answer. But that's what he said. People who suffer bring it upon themselves. It's the only hope for them to change. And he was actually sad when he said that. There was no judgment, but he was sad when he said that. So then I said to God, what about people who are innocent and yet they suffer? Like, what about a little child who's being beaten by their own parents? When I asked God that question, God lost his composure. And he started to cry. God started to cry. I could feel it. Got this sadness. And God said, oh, I can't bear that pain. He says, if a parent chooses to beat his own child, I can't stop it. Yet even then, if that child could reach out to me, I could save that child. He said, I trust you, Ron Papalardo. You can help my children. I can't, but you can. Oh, please, I beg you, won't you do that? And God's just crying and crying. Now I realized that actually if a guy was beating his kid, I could stop him because I have hands and feet and a mouth. But God, as spirit, God can't do that except through me. So by this time, I was very, very moved by the heart of God. I was crying too. I felt like I was listening to a parent whose heart was aching for his children. And I was humbled by the sincerity and honesty that God was expressing. He was sharing with me as if I was a long-time and trusted friend. Then I searched my heart to see if there was anything else I should say. And I said, forgive me, God, but I also must say this. I have suffered in my life. I tried so hard to find you and to find the truth. From my infancy I tried. I've never been malicious, have I? I tried so hard. I'm talking about especially when I was a teenager, when I was really searching for the truth. I said, I tried so hard and I feel betrayed. Maybe this is blasphemy, but I really feel like I need an apology from you. I'm asking God for. I need to know you won't take advantage of me. Why didn't you come to me when I was so lonely, especially as a teenager? And then God, with much tears and great anguish, said, because you never asked me. Because you never cried out to me. And when I checked my heart, I knew that that was true. I was all up in my head, reading books, searching, but I never asked God to talk to me or be with me. I'm sorry, God, I didn't know how, I said to God. And then God said, when you cried out to me, didn't I answer? Immediately I answered, it was me, in tears. You must believe me, it was me, nobody else, who answered you. In 3 days I led you to my son. So one day I cried out to God when I was 20 years old. 3 days later I met this church. And he's saying that was me. That wasn't a coincidence. So after this, my heart was satisfied. And I realized that God actually really, really loved me. But then I thought we were done. But God didn't leave. And I was kind of nervous. I was like, why is he still here? And I didn't know what to do. But God was still in the woods and he wouldn't leave. And I was like, what do I do now? So God helped me by breaking the silence. He said, there's something else still bothering you. It's okay. You can tell me. Can you imagine? He's like helping me out. So then I searched my heart some more, and what I found in there surprised me and disturbed me. And yet I knew that I had to say it, because if I didn't say it, it would have been like being dishonest, and I would miss out on this precious opportunity to heal my heart. It's weird, I said to God. It's weird, but there's something inside me that still feels like saying, I hate you, to God. He wasn't surprised at all or offended. His demeanor was one of absolutely gentle kindness, and I felt as if he smiled at me with tenderness. And God said, Ron, you don't hate me. You really don't. You just want to know that I love you. You want to know it. In reality, I felt your love for me. And then I said to God, but I was really lonely before. It hurt so bad that I wanted to die. And then this is what God said. If I had not allowed you to have that experience, where would you be right now? And I realized I never would have found God if I hadn't gone through that suffering. You've got a good point, I said. I can see, and then he said, do you think it was easy for me to watch you suffer? I only hoped it would be for a short time until I realized that I needed God. And then I said, I can see now that it was out of your love for me. And then God hugged me. I felt hugged, and he said, I really love you, my son. You should know that. Don't worry about anything. Just know that I love you. There's more, but I don't want to take up too much time. So that was the day I fell in love with God. I mean, I was already 5 years in the church, but I consider that my spiritual birthday, because I felt crazy in love with God. I never felt a love like that, ever. Not from my parents, not from girlfriend, wow, I was just blown away. And I became crazy for God after that, and I still am a little nuts. So that was the experience. Yeah, that's it. So would anybody like to have an experience like that? If you would, raise your hand. Okay, so
Who wouldn't?
who wouldn't, right? So I had this journal. The only reason I wrote it down is because I had this journal with me. So Bob's going to give everybody a journal. I'm going to give you a present today. I call this my journal with God. So everybody's going to get a journal with God. Okay? And then I'm going to tell you exactly how this works. And if you do it exactly the way I tell you, God will talk to you right now. It can happen right now. Okay? So what I'm going to invite you to do, instead of me just saying a prayer, we're all going to say a prayer, which is simply just saying we're going to talk to God. So this journal is yours to take it home with you. Okay? And what I want you to do is open it up, and for the next 5 or 10 minutes or whatever, I want you to write a letter to God. Just write whatever you want to say to God. If you had a chance to talk directly to God, or to write him an email or send him a letter, just write down. It doesn't have to be an award-winning thing. Just write down how you feel. Especially like if you're pissed off about something, write that down. If you're angry at God, write that down. Say, I've really been pissed off at you because my life has sucked. Write it down. And then when you finish, vent. It's like venting, vent. Just vent on this paper and get it out. Then, when you're done, the last thing I want you to write is, and by the way, you have to write this down because we don't have it up here. Oh, let's see if I have a pen. Yeah, I have a pen. So after you finish venting, the last thing you write, this is the magic sentence. Is there anything you want to say to me right now? That's it. Is there anything you want to say to me right now?